On this episode of Fly Fishing Unfiltered, we cover the difference between Scandi and Skagit Spey lines, when to use them, and how to select the proper tips.
Hey everyone, David, Northwest Fly Fishing Outfitters, coming to you with another Fly Fishing Unfiltered. And today I am joined by Colby. And Colby, I gotta say, you're one of the most intelligent line guys I know. And so we've been getting some questions recently on what's the difference between a Scandi and a Skagit. How do I know what weight grain I should be selecting for the rods that I'm fishing? So can you help us? Let's start with the question of what's the difference between a Skagit and a Scandi line?
Cool. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah.
So the two major differences between a Scandi and a Skagit is going to be your length and the taper of the line. Your traditional Scandi or Scandinavian taper is going to be much longer, and it's going to have a much longer taper. It's meant for throwing smaller flies.
Okay.
In hindsight, I should have grabbed some small flies, but it's meant for small things. It's kind of your Miata, if you will.
Okay.
Whereas the Skagit is developed to use with sinking tips and larger flies. So think of it as maybe like your F250.
Okay.
The Skagit lines tend to be much shorter, let's say 18 to 23. And the Scandi lines tend to be, let's say 30 feet to 45 feet.
Okay.
Depending on your brand and preference. They do make longer ones. They tend to be like more traditional or mid-belly. There's some variances there, but by and large, most folks these days are going to do either a Skagit or a compact Scandi.
Okay. And so is there certain seasons that we're focused on Skagit versus Scandi, or is it just kind of a broad swath and do whatever you like out there?
Ultimately, it is do whatever you like. There are some people that like to do a Scandi, or what we would say a dry line, during winter. So maybe if you're a dry fly guy, you want to get them in a very classical sense, or your name is Todd Hirano, you're going to be swinging a dry line or a Scandi all winter. But many of us prefer to get a little bit lower down in the water column just because the water's cold. These fish are ectotherms. And so the water dictates how lethargic these fish can get when it gets cold. So you got to use a sink tip, which means you got to use, in essence, a Skagit.
Okay.
There are sink tips, though, for Scandis. So if I was going to use an airflow Scandi compact, you're going to want to use maybe a poly leader or a versa leader, or even just a mono leader.
Okay.
But when we say sink tips, we're usually talking about tungsten T-tips, or maybe some Mo tips or replacement tips or whatever you want to call it. But these heavier items, these have more grains than these versa leaders.
Right.
And when you're talking about grains, you have to have mass to move mass, which means you got to be using a Skagit.
Okay. So let's talk, since we're already getting into grains, let's talk about Skagits. And on our lines here, we've got a lot of different grain weights. Mm-hmm. How is a consumer supposed to know what grain weight, apart from coming into Northwest Fly Fishing Outfitters, how are they supposed to know what line to pair? Is it based upon the rod? Is it based upon the Spey caster? How are they going to know what they should be selecting?
Good question. Depending on your brand of Spey rod, that designation of line grains or grain window will be written on the rod. So I knew like the new R8s have that written down. They have a Scandi number and a Skagit number. And that'll give you a rough equivalent. If you have an older rod that doesn't have it, that's going to be a little harder. Sometimes line companies like Scientific Anglers, they'll have like a line grain sheet, and you have to go and try and find your rod within there. Yeah. It'll give you an idea. But like you said, it does depend on the caster. Some of us prefer a deeper loading sensation when we're casting. Others like a more tip-centric cast. And so there's kind of like two classes of people. You've got your type A and your type B. And so the type A, the tip casting, they're going to usually use the designated line weight that the manufacturer designates, or they'll go a little lighter.
A little lighter, okay.
And the B group does either the one on that they designate or a little heavier.
Okay.
It just depends on the caster. This is a super subjective thing.
Right.
However, there is some window of subjectivity, but the rod does need enough mass or enough grains to properly load. So you got to stay within that window.
Okay. And so I think just to kind of clear all this up, Skagit, we're going subsurface primarily.
We're heavy. We're deep.
We're going heavy. We're going deep. So
or big fly.
Yeah.
Scandi is more your dry line, your summer, your classic flies, your small stuff. Unless maybe you're on the Deschutes and it's high sun and you need to get down just a little bit deeper, then you will switch over to a Skagit system with a light sink tip or heavy sink tip. But when we get into winter, like we are right now, it's Skagit season.
It's all Skagit season, unless you're that crazy person who's just got to swing some up on a dry in the middle of the winter.
They're out there.
Which I know that you were on the John Day just recently.
They eat dry flies.
Swung them up on dries. So it can be done. But anything else in terms of lines that you want to share regarding Spey rods?
Yeah, we can talk about perhaps maybe the length of a Skagit. I know some companies like SA or Rio. I know Rio has two different lines. There's a max launch and a max power. We're talking maybe the difference of 2 or 3 feet. Some would say that's quite negligible, but I would beg to differ. There are times and places where one befits the rod better than the other. I would say the shorter ones tend to be easier to cast.
And so that's going to be more, again, specific to a rod and not a cast
rod length. Yeah, rod length or the size of a caster.
Okay.
I would take into consideration. If you've got a great big tall dude, he's going to be standing higher up than a shorter person would. So taking that into consideration as well.
Okay.
But by and large, it kind of also depends on where you're fishing. If you're dealing with a lot of back casting obstructions, sometimes a shorter line is a little easier to keep out of the brush.
Yeah.
But if you're on, let's say you're on the Skagit River, not right now because you'd be 6 feet underwater. But you have there's parking lots behind you in a lot of these places.
Right.
You have the room to use a longer line to get a longer cast.
Like a Skeena.
Or a Skeena.
All the room in the world.
Yeah. So keeping the idea of where you're fishing, what does that look like? Is the stream bank very brushy or steep? Are you going to be up to your belly button as opposed to in your ankles?
Right.
All kinds of things. These are tools.
So let me just jump into that right now. As a avid steelhead angler, which you are, you have multiples of these in your own arsenal. Is that correct?
I have a tote box of probably like 30, 40 lines.
Okay.
Now that covers different grain weights for different rods and what have you. But let's say for in the winter with my 8 weight, I've probably changing between 2 different lines, a short one and a long one.
So to the person watching this video, should they be investing in more than just one line? Or if they had to invest in one line for summer and one for winter, what are we looking at?
That's usually where most folks start. Is start with one. We're probably going to toss you a Skagit. It's easier to cast.
Yes, it is.
But it is also bowling with the bumpers on, right? You're getting a good score, but you're getting a lot of help.
Some of us like that extra help.
Some of us like the help. But I would say by and large, if you're just getting into it, get a Skagit.
Okay.
If you're getting one now, we're slowly easing out of fall and those warmer temps. It's going to be Skagit until April.
Right.
So get a Skagit head. And then once you get your Skagit by let's say August of next year, get your Scandi. The most you need is 2. 2 is plenty for your rod.
And then last question, because you did touch on tips. And I know in one of our earlier Steelhead Syndicate videos, you guys said that Deck has a saying T8 of whatever his saying is. Mm-hmm. But we've got various different T8s, T11s. How does the average consumer know which tip they should be using?
To keep things simple, I would say buy a 10-foot tip. It's going to be kind of your everyday carry. Of that, there are 3 that would be most chosen upon. So you have your T8 or T7. It depends between manufacturers, between the number of grains of tungsten per foot, which is how they come up with the T number. But you're going to have T8, T11, T14.
Right.
All in 10-foot, perfectly fine. Use those all season. I think your T11 is probably going to be your most generally used tip. If we're getting into low and clear conditions and you've got to get a little deeper, I'd say grab the T14. And then kind of, I'm brain farting the word, but like most folks would think it was the opposite. But in high water, you're going to grab your lightest tip.
Okay.
In high water, the soft water along the bank is where those fish are going to want to hang out.
Holding, yeah.
So you don't need to get down where all the fast water is. So you're going to use that T8 in really high water. Comb the inside.
That's great information. Anything else that you want to share on lines?
You know, if you're having any issues casting, please let us know. We're suited to help you out in that regard. Whether it's training and tutelage or even just coming into the shop and be like, hey, look up on my phone, here's my cast.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help. I think the more people we help, the more people we get out on the river fishing, and rivers need friends. So
rivers need
I'm
friends.
all for it.
And we as fly anglers need friends because steelhead fishing, there's a lot of lonely days out there.
I got enough. We're good.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm covered on that.
Speak for myself, I guess.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is Northwest Fly Fishing Outfitters is here to help you. So whether you're on the East Coast or the Midwest or here on the West Coast, if you pick up the phone, you call us, you message us, you talk to us about the questions that you have as it relates to your rod, we can help you. You don't have to just come into this store to get our help and assistance. We love what we do here at Northwest Fly Fishing Outfitters. So feel free to reach out to us. And then the absolute last thing I got to say is thank you, Colby. If you are looking to get into winter steelhead, summer steelhead, summertime bass, Colby is one of our guides here. He works in the shop 4 days a week. We're trying to get 7 days a week. And he's like, no, it's not going to happen. And I love you, man. But he is an amazing guide, and we love to talk about our guides here, get them on the water. So if you're looking for a steelhead trip, salmon fly trip on the Deschutes when that's happening, or bass,
Bass.
Or bass, he loves bass. Colby is your guy. He is awesome out there, and we want to make sure that we're keeping our guides busy doing what they love. So with that, we really appreciate you tuning into another Fly Fishing Unfiltered, and we'll see you next time.